Welcome to Scanner School, session number 17, a podcast where we teach you everything that you need to know about the scanner radio hobby. Today we're talking about scanning communities, live communities that you can become a member of and learn about the local scanning environment. Now, if there's no scanning communities in your area, we're going to discuss on how to start one of your own. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Scanner School, a podcast dedicated to the scanner radio hobby. Class is about to begin. Here is your host, Phil Lichtenberger.
So welcome to Scanner School. I'm Phil Lichtenberger. My amateur radio call sign is W2LIE. Today we have an interview scheduled with Marshall Sherard. So Marshall is a fellow radio reference database admin, and I've met him online only via radio reference. So in addition to that, Marshall and I also have a mutual friend. And this mutual friend is somebody that I knew from the Long Island area who transplanted down to Marshall's area in Raleigh, North Carolina. So my mutual friend to Marshall's met at a scanner group that Marshall is a member of. And the name of the group is down in Raleigh, North Carolina. The name is called the Tarheel Scanner Shortwave Listeners Group. I know, it's a tongue twister, and I goofed it up about 5 or 6 times during the interview, and I edited it all the way out. I mean, I just could not get those words out of my mouth. But Marshall is a really great guy. He went through what it's like to be a member of a physical, in-person scanning community. So he talks about how, they share the radios, they share insight in the local knowledge. Maybe they introduce each other to something that is new to somebody in the group. Maybe some part of the niche of the scanner radio hobby that somebody has an interest on will share that information with the group in a presentation form. If you would like to be a guest on my podcast, I would love to have you here. And I'm sure other people would love to hear your stories. Or if you have an area of expertise that you are willing to share, maybe you're interested in weather receiving or picking out some shortwave listening or some DXing, or maybe you're into military aviation, or there's something else out there that you really find enjoyment in that you would like to share with the rest of the scanning community, please, I invite you, and I would love to have you on the podcast. Please email me at Phil, that's my first name, Papa Hotel India Lima @scannerschool.com. Or you can always go to the Scanner School website and click on the contact form, which is at the top of the screen. So that would be scannerschool.com/contact. Now, again, you can always go and find the show notes. There's a couple of links that are in this interview, and those links will be on the show notes at scannerschool.com/session17. So again, sit back. We have about a 35-minute conversation with Marshall, and we'll see you on the other side of the interview. Thanks. So I want to welcome Marshall Sherard to the Scanner School podcast. Marshall, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's good to be here, Phil. I'm glad that I could be a part of this.
So, Marshall, tell me a little bit about your background and introduce yourself to our listeners.
Right. I live here, and my name is Marshall Sherard. My ham call sign is KE4ZNR, or Kilowatt Echo for Zany Notorious Romeo, as is common kind of nickname there in the ham hobby. But I live here in central North Carolina. I'm actually a radio system engineer for one of the cities here in central North Carolina. And my day-to-day job is to make sure that police, fire, and EMS personnel in the city that I work in have their radios working, hopefully 24/7. I'm also on the side a ham radio operator, like I said, and then I'm also a big-time scanner, shortwave buff as well. And so that's kind of where I come into this, is that I love all aspects of anything having to do with radio monitoring there.
Excellent. So what is your favorite part about the scanner radio monitoring hobby? What's the one thing that you... I mean, it's kind of like the pizza delivery guy, right? He
Yes.
delivers pizza all day long, doesn't want to listen to it. So somebody who's in, I mean, do you listen to it after work, or are you just done with it?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny that you bring that up, because when I first started in this, this was, for me, my background, I actually started in my career. My career I actually owe to the hobby of radio monitoring. And when I was many years younger, I've been in this for many years. I'm 43 now. I started in my early teenage years, and I tell you what, I would listen 24/7 in my earlier years. Now, when I get home in the evenings after listening for 8+ hours a day to all kinds of radio traffic, that I like to have a little bit of quiet time where I'm not bombarded by foot chases and everything. But there's still that insatiable urge to know what's going on. So I can't lie. I always have at least a couple of radios on in the background. I may have them turned down a little bit more than usual, but as you well know, once you get bitten by the bug, you really can't avoid having at least one radio on at all times.
Yeah, that's exactly right. As we're doing this interview here, I got a pager that's over my shoulder right now that I just use for buffing, and I just heard it, the relays click. It's like,
yes.
It's right on time.
Oh, yeah. I'm always, every day at work, I carry with me a couple of Motorola radios, city issued, Motorola Apex 8000 XE and a Motorola Apex 6000, plus a scanner that I'm helping one of the two major scanner manufacturers bring to market here, and it just recently got announced. So we're testing that one out as well. For me, it's a passion, and thankfully, all of my significant others, my ex-wife was very giving about it. My current relationships are also very, so far I've been very lucky in that I've had people around me that are willing to put up with it, because they're the first ones to call me up and ask me, "Hey, I saw blue lights going down the road," or "I heard a siren. What's going on?" So, I'm always the first one that gets anytime anything major happens around here. I'm always the first one that gets the calls or the text messages or the instant messages going, "Hey, what's going on here in Raleigh? What's going on in Durham?"
You become that guy, right? Everybody knows.
Oh yes.
Yes. They got you on speed dial, but
yeah, my family does as well. Anything that happens in their local neighborhood, most of my family, I'm lucky enough to have live in the general vicinity of where I live at, and so anytime anything major happens, they call or text me, and they're wanting the inside scoop on what I've heard over the radio.
That kind of segues into really why you're here with me today, is because you have a couple of you found a couple of people that are local to you who share the same passion, and they, I'm sure, get the same kind of phone calls you do. So I'm sure it's a topic of conversation at what it is that you're here for. And
yeah, most definitely. We're lucky in that we have a good group of like-minded folks like myself that over the last 30+ years, we've had a group that meets once a month in person, and we also, of course, correspond online on Yahoo groups, and we've transitioned over to Facebook groups, and we're reaching out to other platforms as well. But we have we call it the Tarheel Scanner Shortwave Listeners Group here in Central North Carolina, and that's we kind of our motto, if anything else, is just DC to daylight, which means that we have folks that love to listen to everything from low band HF transmissions like beacons and that type of deal, all the way up to satellites. So you have the entire spectrum covered within our group, and that's why we're so lucky, is that we have folks that have decided to devote their part of the hobby to their own niche, if you will. So mine, for example, is public safety monitoring here in Central North Carolina, which is obviously kind of fitting because, that's kind of the industry I work in. So it fits in really well. But yeah, we definitely have folks of all stripes that kind of have that whole spectrum covered for us. So what I don't know, someone else in the group will stand up and say, "Hey, guess what I heard on Shortwave? This is what's going on." So that helps us out as well.
So your scanner club, you said, meets once a month. How did it start? How did you get involved with it?
Oh, yeah. Well, the group started before I was even a part of it, but it started with some local college-age guys that originally went to one of the major colleges around here, NC State. Some folks out there I know will recognize NC State from Jim Valvano and all that stuff. But NC State's a college here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and some of the guys that were going to that college were electronic and ham radio geeks and stuff like that. So they founded the club in the early to mid 80s is what I'm told. I got started in it in the early 90s. I was a kid. My interest into the hobby started from a accidental. I had a buddy of mine that was an EMS volunteer here locally, and I rode with him one day, and he had a scanner in his truck in his personal vehicle. And I said, well, what's that? I had no idea really what it was. And he told me what it was. I was like, wait, you can hear all the calls as they happen real time? And he was like, yeah, that's kind of what I have to do. And so that got me interested. I pestered my parents until they bought me a Realistic Pro 41 handheld scanner, which at the time was just a bare bones basic VHF, UHF, 10 channel scanner, just your low end scanner. But it got me really, it opened up the world for me as far as scanner listening. I started not only listening to public safety, but then I started realizing, wait, you've got ham radio conversations going on here as well. And at the time, our club, the Tarheel Club, actually had a ham radio net that would go on Monday nights, kind of a way for everybody to check in and relay what they're hearing, either on shortwave or on the public safety side of things. And so I started listening to that net on Monday nights and hearing what, kind of jotting down what the other guys were hearing in the hobby. And then one day I was in one of those high school jobs that every kid goes through. I was working at a Hardee's restaurant, a fast food restaurant as a kid. And one of the guys that I heard on the net, you know the voices after a while. You get to know. And so when he came to the drive-thru, without him even telling me his name, I recognized his voice. I said, wait, you're Kurt Phillips, KD4YU, right? And he said, yep. And so I said, well, do y'all actually meet on for this club and all? And he told me where they met up at on the third Monday of each month. And so that was my first real introduction to it. Kurt has gone on. He's changed his call sign. It's now W4CP, and I got to give out his accurate call sign. He was actually my Elmer into this part of the hobby. And so it was a blast just getting to get to know some of these guys that you hear on the radio. Now all of a sudden you're seeing them in person. I went to my first Tarheel Club meeting, and I'm sitting there, the lowly guy with only one small little handheld scanner, and all these other guys have Pro 2006s. Remember, this is the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s when trunking was not around. It was still to be a big deal. So everybody had Pro 2006s, Pro 2004s, that line of scanners. And, of course, I was drooling, not at the food that we had there at the restaurant, but about all the radios that were there. And so, but I felt like the little kid that came unprepared because all I had was my small little 10-channel scanner. But, they accepted me. They brought me in. One of the local guys actually started a website about the same time. Well, let me back up just a little bit. To be able to facilitate kind of exchange of information, one of the members, local TV engineer here in Central North Carolina, actually had a bulletin board system. If you're old school like me, you remember the old dial-up bulletin board days.
You dial into it, listen to the modems go, and then all of a sudden you got the little, the ASCII.
That's right. So, he had one that he called Frequencies Are Us, kind of a tribute, if you will, to the sadly demised Toys R Us. But for him, it was a local dial-up bulletin board called Frequencies Are Us, or as we nicknamed it, Freaks Are Us. And, it's funny to think back now that I would sit there. We would have a Excel file that we called a triangle frequency list that everybody kind of contributed to. And, of course, you would hope when you would dial into the bulletin board, you put your phone aside later in the evening, you'd wait for it to download overnight because, it was still so slow, the transfer rate. So you would hope that nobody would pick up on the phone or that nobody would call in during the middle of the night to interrupt your download for that frequency list. So, that's the painful days of dial-up internet access, if you will, or the beginning stages. But we also had a local guy in the group. as the years kind of progressed and we started to move on to the internet, we had a local guy here, Rich Wells, who he developed a website that, of course, a lot of the folks that are going to be listening to this will recognize as strongsignals.net.
Mm-hmm.
And Rich, when we always look to the sports stars and we see like Jay Leno, or we see the entertainers that have like all the fancy cars that we want to have, the Lamborghinis, all that stuff. Well, Rich was the Lamborghinis of radios, had the Lamborghini of radios, because you would go on strongsignals.net and he would bring all these radios to the club meetings. And these are radios that the manufacturers were giving him to test out before they released them. Upatero, AOR, he had a little bit. To someone like me that had, I was just starting my collection at that time. It was, you're looking at it. It was like a who's who of radio, from receivers, scanners, and everything else. And so getting to know Rich was also another stepping stone as far as me. And that's where I learned what ultimately became my motto to this day, which is never enough radios. We jokingly say that you need one for each ear, but I've long since passed that. I have enough radios for probably 70 or 80 people's total ears times two. So
see, I always say I've got the disease. When a new radio comes out, you got to get on it.
That's right, most definitely. So it's I started building up my collection and started really figuring out my niche in the hobby. I was a big contributor to strongsignals.net and a big part of that. And then 1997, oh my gosh, that was the year. And I know you'll remember this as well. That was the year that everything kind of changed for the hobby. Because that's when Uniden came out with the first trunking scanner, and that was of course the 235 XLT. And Rich and myself were luckily we were kind of just a variety of things fell together. But here in North Carolina at the time, we also had Grove Enterprises. The Bob Grove and Judy Grove and the folks behind Monitoring Times, the magazine that was so popular for many years here in the hobby, was based out of the western part of our state here in Brasstown, North Carolina. And Rich and myself were two of the very first folks to get our hands on 235 XLTs when they came out. And for us, that was just whoa, oh my gosh, like a whole world's been opened up. We only really had one trunk system in this area at the time, but we could see where everybody was kind of headed with the meetings that were going on within the governments that were saying, we need to start being able to talk to each other. This is still the early ages of trunking, but still the public safety agencies were deciding we need to have a better interoperable interop situation for us. So they started building out trunk systems here locally. And as the years went on, it just my love for the hobby just continued. It actually again dovetailed in with my professional career as from the right around March of 1999 to the end of 2003. I worked for a company called Westwood One Metro Networks. I worked as a traffic reporter here in the Triangle area. I worked as a producer, which would mean I would sit up in the studio, monitor about 8 or 9 different scanners, which I know, man, what a tough job for a radio geek like us. This is that's heaven right there. But I would also do traffic reports here in the local area. And my love for the hobby continued on until just a few years, about 60 years ago, I took a job here with one of the local cities as the radio system engineer. And again, I get to marry my love of radio at work each day, but also when I get to in my off time, I get to hopefully be a part of what I've enjoyed so much with the hobby. And my whole goal is, and I still do this to this day, is to hopefully be an Elmer to other folks as well. Meaning what I've been so lucky and so blessed to get as a result of my hobby, I try to pass that along to other folks as well, because that's the only way that our hobby is going to survive, is to have other folks come in and be a part of it. So, it's really, that's kind of a shortened up, a very truncated version of my story. But we do have the Tarheel Scanner Group is a wonderful group of guys. Our meetings kind of vary. We have anywhere from, it can be as low as 4 or 5 guys show up all the way up to 16 or 17. You just never know. Obviously, on holidays, stuff like that, the meeting for each, the attendance for each one of the meetings could be a little bit less because people are off visiting family, stuff like that. But there's months when we have 16 or 17 folks that will show up, and we'll have a great time of just sitting and discussing what's new. Me being the scanner guy, of course, every time something happens, like when Unit just announced their SDS 100 that'll be coming out, of course, people are asking me questions right and left, trying to get the inside scoop and everything, and I'm like, some stuff I can say, some stuff I can't say. So
right. Got that NDA, right?
That's right. So but it's a lot of fun. Our group, like I said, has guys that cover everything from shortwave on up to, we got guys that just, all they do is they drive around in their cars with their medium wave AM radios, and their whole part of the hobby is medium wave DXing, trying to hear medium wave stations that are as far away as possible. We're very lucky that we got guys that have parts of the hobby that I have never thought of. People that all they do is they hook up a pair of rabbit ears to their HD TV, and they'll try DX far away HD over the air TV stations.
And that's a new part of the hobby though too, because that's what we mean with the analog TV. I remember reading about that in Monitoring Times. Right? They would say, "Oh, I got this HD TV channel a couple states away," because the spectrum was so clean at that point. But
that's right.
I think that's when that part exploded as well. I mean,
oh yeah, most definitely. It's so fun to see that you see these guys that build something, a new part of the hobby out of something that nobody ever thought of before. That somebody had that mindset that, oh wait, I've got an HD TV. Wait, it's hooked up to my Yagi up in my attic. Let me see what happens if I point my Yagi this direction. Am I going to hear something from very far away? And so that I just love that part of the hobby, that there's always that type of desire to invent something new to monitor in our spectrum. So the hobby's been wonderful to me. The group's been wonderful to me. I would not be where I'm at in my professional career or in the hobby itself if not for the local folks in the Tarheel Scanner Shortwave group that have been such a positive influence on me. So I have to give them all the credit in the world. If you can find a local group like that to your local area, I can tell you it can definitely be such a boon to you professionally and privately that, they can help you further along in your hobby. They can help you find out new aspects of, or help you just improve what you love doing already. They can maybe show you, oh, wait, you maybe want to try this antenna instead of that antenna. Or, you may want to try this radio instead of that radio.
Right.
So
and nothing beats that, face-to-face interaction. I mean, the internet's great and all that, because you can, get hints or get ideas from somebody. But I mean, if you want to try something new and you want to put your hands on something, I mean, nothing beats that. And that whole face-to-face and having your little community of, from your scanner club, that is on another level that you can't get by just being on the internet, which is great. So let me ask you this: how do you guys? Well, first of all, you say sometimes between 6 and 16 users a month. So where do you normally hold your meetings? Is it done like at a rec center or is it someplace else?
Well, we actually have a restaurant here in Raleigh that's a great Southern barbecue restaurant. It's called Red Hot and Blue, and a great local barbecue restaurant for those folks that are here in Raleigh. but we meet. They're lucky enough to. This restaurant's been gracious enough to give us a meeting room off of their main dining area that's closed off, which is really important if you're a local group trying to figure out a place to hold your meetings. Make sure you have somewhere that's going to be kind of quiet. Make sure you have somewhere that's, if you're going to be meeting at a restaurant, that's kind of off of the, of course, the main dining area. That way your meeting can be held kind of uninterrupted. Another thing that was a plus for us is that they have outlet options for us. So folks that bring in a projector for presentations can plug in, to an outlet to have power there, or they want to plug in a radio or something like that. You can do that as well. But they've been very gracious to us. Red Hot and Blue. We meet on the third Monday of each month. 6 p.m. for dinner, and then usually about 7 p.m. for the presentation. And we, as all of us hams are known to do, we can ramble on, but we try to keep the presentation to under an hour. And a lot of times, if nothing else, we'll have a bunch guys, but we'll get together and we'll just have a show and tell. So whatever new toys you've bought within the last month or whatever, bring it on in, show it off, and let us see, because we might be interested in picking one up for ourselves. So, it's kind of great that way as well. But we meet on the third Monday of each month. We've got like I said, a Yahoo group that we've used in the past. We're moving some of our conversations elsewhere, like Facebook and stuff like that. We're always trying new social media platforms to figure out what's going to work best for us. But for many, many years, we've had a Yahoo group that's just, if you go to Yahoo Groups and search for Tarheel Scanner, it's just all one word, Tarheelscanner, Tarheel Scanner. You'll come up with our group, and we'll be glad to have anybody that wants to join. I have some, it's funny, it's almost like you go back, it's like a museum now. I go back to the files section of that Yahoo group, and I find frequency files I'd done from, 20 years ago in there. And I'm like, that's probably not going to work today if you try to put that in any radio. Those frequencies are no longer used, but it's still kind of, you don't want to get rid of them because it's history there. So
right, exactly. It's a little bit sentimental, right, in a way.
Yeah.
So so you guys basically you have a meet and eat, I guess is the best way to say it.
Right.
So how do you guys discuss? I guess the agenda would be something you plan out ahead of time, or is it just like when you guys get together? I mean, obviously when you have somebody coming in with a projector, that's going to be something that's planned up. But how do you guys really structure a meeting besides dinner first, then whatever?
And one major point I should point out is that our Tarheel Scanner group, we're what we call a special interest group offshoot of the Raleigh Amateur Radio Society, or RARS, this here in the Raleigh area, the largest ham club here in the Raleigh area. We've been very blessed that Raleigh Amateur Radio Society allows us to be a special interest group of them for all these years. So it kind of gives those of us that are hams, a place to be as well. But yeah, we just discuss on the Yahoo group each month, a week or two before the meeting. We'll send out an email saying, hey, who wants to do a presentation this month? Do you want to talk about this, or do you want to talk about such and such? Or, oh, hey, wait, we have that new scanner or that new SDR product coming out. Can you do a presentation on it? And it's kind of a laid-back atmosphere. That's what we've always tried to initiate. We don't try to be hard and fast about, you have to have exactly 25 minutes of presentation and then 15 minutes of this and that. No, we're just, hey, if you feel like sharing, all the much better. We always love having a new type of presentation come in. And then we do have a few meetings, like on the December meeting of each year, we have what we call the Christmas swap meeting, which is you bring in anything radio related from your shack that you've not looked at within the last year. And we have a giveaway type of deal. We'll put everybody's name into a hat, and then, we'll draw someone's name out of the hat, and then they get to pick one of the items that's there. And So you get everything from battery chargers on up to, I brought a couple of scanners in the past few years that I just was not using anymore. I'm collecting dust, and I'd rather they get used by someone than just to collect dust. So it's a great time to have that each year too, is the Christmas meeting. It allows us to clean up our shack as we always need to do, and still give someone else a chance to have a new item as well in their collection.
That's a really, really great idea. Plus, the benefit is too, when Santa brings you another scanner, you have a place on your shelf for it. So
that's right, most definitely, most definitely. And that's also we also will trade magazines and stuff like that. So we'll still have folks that will bring in. I'll admit I'm the a little bit of the hoarder as for when it comes to the monitoring hobby. So I've got radio magazines going back to the 80s. So collections of monitoring time, stuff like that. So I'm always trading magazines back and forth. Oh wait, you want this copy of CQ? I've got this issue of monitoring times, blah blah blah, that type of deal as well.
Okay, so if somebody's looking to find a meeting in their area, what do you think would be like the best way for them to find one?
Oh yeah, well, there's a couple of different ways. Of course, the biggest monitoring site around is one that you and I are well familiar with, and that's of course radioreference.com. That's kind of one of the first spots I always. We have the individual state forums at Radio Reference, so I tell people that they'll reach out to me and they'll post a message in our North Carolina forum saying, is there a local club to the Central North Carolina area, or is there a club near Charlotte that I can go to? And so we'll try to help direct folks to their to folks around them that will help out. But you can also, if you just do a search for ham radio on Google and go from there, a lot of these clubs start out as just offshoots of local ham groups that start out. So you'll find, and it's not a surprise that many of us scanner geeks are also ham radio operators. So we all kind of run together. So that's also another good spot, is to start at a local ham group meeting. Just show up to your next local ham group meeting and kind of start to ask around. Say, hey, I'm interested in ham radio, but I also like scanners as well. Is there someone in y'all's group that does scanner stuff? Oh yeah, we actually have a whole group of guys that are crazy enough that they just love listening 24 hours a day. So here's one of the guys that's a big part of that club. So you'll get contacts there as well.
Okay, and again, too, like having an amateur license wouldn't be a prerequisite to getting into a scanner club.
When I started, I had no ham license. I was just a little kid that was interested in seeing where all the blue lights and the red lights were going to, and hearing all the action as it happened. And so, yeah, when I started, I had no ham license whatsoever. Like I said, the hobby has given me everything that I've had. So I gained not only my ham license through the hobby and through my career, but I also now have what they call a general radio telephone operator's license, or a GROL. And with both of those, any type of radio technician type of career that you would want, you can usually get with if you have both of those in your resume. That's definitely going to go a long way towards you getting hired somewhere. So if you want to take your hobby to the next level and you want to try to make it a career in some form or fashion, there you go. The hobby can give you all the tools that you need to really make that a possibility. So.
Right. I mean, you and I are in kind of the same boat with that one. Scanning was the gateway drug to amateur radio. So
that's right. That's right.
Start somewhere.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you have to do everything in the world with ham radio, but I'm saying that it can also be a great part of your hobby as well. We're getting ready to have here next weekend. Each year we have what we call the Raleigh Amateur Radio Fest, or the RARS Fest, a ham radio fest that happens once a year here at the end of March, and of course, I'll be there. I've got friends of mine that will be there as well, and we'll have a good time. Trying not to spend too much money, but having a good time there. So we're looking forward to that as well.
Right, and then the other thing too that's coming up right around the corner too is Amateur Radio Field Day, which is the last full weekend of June. So if anybody's interested, in amateur radio or scanning too. That's a great way to get down and meet some people, maybe even get on the air and get introduced to at least people in the area that enjoy radio, and then maybe you'll find yourself at a meeting, and again, you might find yourself a bunch of guys that like scanning, but maybe you'll find yourself that you'll actually want to get involved with amateur radio. So Amateur Radio Field Day, if you go to please arrl.org/field day would be a link, but we'll put the link also in the show notes for this podcast session.
Right. So, yeah. Both of them can be a great, a lot of fun. I mean, I've had just so much fun in the scanning hobby, but also in the ham radio hobby as well.
Right. So I got one last question for you, if you don't mind. If, say, somebody went through all those steps, they went online, they couldn't find anything local, there's no amateur radio club in the area, nobody in the amateur radio club is interested in starting up an offshoot for scanning, what advice would you give somebody who's looking to start their own group, and how much work would it be to get something off the ground?
It really is not the most difficult thing in the world, but if I can do anything personally to help anybody else out there, as others have helped me, a big part of our hobby, we call folks that have influenced you and helped you along in your hobby as Elmers. That's kind of the nickname that we give them in our hobby. But if I can help anybody else in, you're more than welcome to reach out to me directly. My email address is pretty easy. It's just my ham call sign, which is Kilo Echo 4 Zany Notorious Romeo, or KE4ZNR at radioreference.com. And I'll kind of help try to get you pointed in the right direction. I may live nowhere near you, but I'll try to give you some starter ideas as far as what you may want to start to do. But also, just once you start to find those folks around you that have that same love of radio that you do, trying to just, try to start a type of monthly get-together. That's the thing that's really helped us survive all these years, is that we have that dedicated third Monday of each month, barring any life, like a major event. The third Monday of each month is always our meeting date. So we have that nailed down in stone. There's no ambiguity about it. So once you get that set up and you get to have some of those ideas that, okay, this is where we want to go with this. We want to have everybody that is interested in radio, or maybe you just want to have, this is just going to be a VHF, UHF 7-800 club. So this is just going to be a public safety related type of club. Then once you have those ideas nailed down in stone, it makes life so much easier. And again, picking out a meeting spot, there's got to be at least one spot around you that will let you meet once a month. You may have to be a little bit flexible with them, like they'll be a little bit flexible with you. But once you find that meeting spot right around you, that's another big tent stake in the ground to making your group successful. So
excellent, good tips, and no doubt, I mean, just by listening to all the information you've shared with us today, you're definitely going to be somebody's Elmer, whether you know it or not, because of all the information that you've given us so far today. So definitely I want to appreciate you on behalf of myself and everybody else who's listening. I want to say thank you very much for all the information that you've shared. And I think that having scanning as your hobby, I mean, all the benefits that came out of it, like you were saying, you kind of like walked into it from a friend of yours having one in New England, then finding somebody at your high school job just because you recognize them from the radio, and then getting involved with the meetings, and then that became your full-time career. It's a hobby, but it's one of those things too that the networking that happens because of the hobby, and the networking that could happen because you're a part of a scanner group that is a live face-to-face group, is something that you really can't really measure, I guess is a way to say it.
Oh yeah, and I know you're the same way, Phil. I mean, this is one of the best hobbies around, because I don't know any person out there that has not watched at least a couple episodes of Cops on TV. So when you realize that all you have to do is have that radio on in the background, and when you hear that first foot chase, or you hear that first vehicle chase, from then on out, it's forget any type of caffeine or anything else. It's really the best. It'll get you all hyped up, and you're like, oh my gosh, So it's definitely a one of those hobbies that's like none other, because you're getting the real time action as it happens.
Right, unless you're watching live PD.
True, but still, it's not the. You and I both know it's not the same.
No.
You get to know those inflections in the voice, so you know when something big's going on, and you get to know the folks behind the voices. What my job is, I deal with police, fire, EMS personnel every day in and day out. So I know these folks. I know their families. I know their likes, their dislikes. These guys are friends to me. So when I hear them go through something on the radio, then you want them to be okay at the end of their shift too. So it's not only a fun hobby, but you're also you care about the people behind the microphone.
You have anything else that you want to bring up today before you wrap up?
No, I just want to say this is where I think the hobby is going. Podcasts and programs like this, I think, are going to be such a great part of what helps us share what we love with the entire internet population, but also those that kind of want to know more about the hobby. We moved straight from doing news groups in the early days of the internet to message forums, and now we're kind of taking it to the next step. So I appreciate you bringing this to the folks as well, that hopefully we can gain some good interest from this as well.
Yeah, yep. That's why I'm doing it. I look around, and it's like I don't know if you know, but I do run my own local site here. I mean, there's nothing in comparison with Radio Reference, but just looking at where things are going, it's a lot. People are moving away from the desktop environment and the actual internet forums. They're getting onto like apps like GroupMe and Zello and whatnot. So a lot of everything is getting onto that portable.
The ability to listen when you want to listen.
Exactly.
And that's what podcasts, I subscribe to podcasts online, and when I have downtime at work or I'm on lunch, I'll have my phone with me and I'll dial into one of my podcasts of course, I'll add yours to the list there that, and for me, it's all about listening when I want to listen, and that's what makes the podcast environment so great, is that you got to do it when it's convenient for you.
Excellent. Well, Marshall, I want to thank you so much for being there today. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you especially for sharing your stories with us. I'm sure, I found them very interesting. I'm sure a lot of other people have found them as well. You did share your email address, which is, again, KE4ZNR. I'm saying that
right
properly for everybody who's over in Europe who's listening to us.
That's right.
So it's KE4ZNR at radioreference.com. So if you have any questions about setting up a scanner club in your area, Marshall has been nice enough to extend his help to you. Okay.
Right, and I'll send you a couple links there, Phil, for our group too. So if folks want to get an idea of what we already have set up here locally, I'll give you a couple links that you can post as well if you want to.
And they will be in the show notes as well for today's session. So, all right, Marshall, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Phil.
I certainly appreciate it. All right, I hope you enjoyed our interview with Marshall Sherard, again from the Tarheel Scanner Shortwave Listeners Group. And again, Marshall, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and sitting down and having a conversation with me and sharing your story with the Scanner School podcast. Now, again, if anybody wants to be a guest on the Scanner School podcast, or if you have a kind of podcast that deals with radios or something else that I could bring a story to or share what scanning is about, again, I'm open to being a guest on your podcast as well. So again, go to scannerschool.com/contact, and I'll bring you the contact form where you can reach me, or it's my email, phil@scannerschool.com. Now, again, too, I wanted to remind everybody that we have a new support system out. So if you'd like to help support the Scanner School podcast, there is a very easy way to do so. If you go to scannerschool.com/support, we have about 4 ways that you can help the Scanner School podcast. The first way is free to you. If you're a shopper on Amazon, go to scannerschool.com/support, click on our Amazon link, and go shopping on Amazon. That is a free and easy way for you to support us, because Amazon will pay us if you use our affiliate link. Now, again, this happens at no additional cost to you, Amazon is just thanking us for referring the business to them. Another way we have set up is Patreon. That is a month-to-month contribution that you would make to the Scanner School podcast. And there are several tiers and several benefits as you go up the tiers. So there's a benefit where you would get this podcast a day or two early. There's another benefit where you would get some merchandising. There's another benefit level where you would get some live videos that I'm doing extra just for my Patreon supporters. And in the end, there's having me on retainer, where we would have a up to 30-minute session at most once a month. And I say it that way so that nobody banks their time and expects to get maybe 5 hours to 6 minutes apiece, or 6 minutes, or 6 sessions at 5 minutes apiece, but you get the gist. And for those of you who do not like Patreon, we have a one-time donation set up through PayPal. And we also have some physical goods that we are looking to bring to the table as well. Kind of, no pun intended, but some mugs, maybe some mouse pads and those kinds of deals. So again, if you'd like to support the Scanner School podcast, you can go at scannerschool.com/support. And again, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, because on Facebook, I do a weekly live Q&A session where it's me in front of the camera and I have the computer screen on, and I will take questions via Facebook Live. And what that allows me to do is kind of have a real quick one-on-one interaction with the people who are watching the video feed. Now, if you haven't been able to sit down during the times I have available, because I understand that, I'm on the opposite side of the world from Australia, so the time zones are kind of not in their favor. But the replays are always available. So if you go to scannerschool.com/Facebook, you do not need to be a member of Facebook to watch the live video. And again, if you are not a member of Facebook and you want to watch the live video, again, you don't need to be a member of Facebook for that. But if you want to ask a question, you would need to be a member of Facebook. Or you can go to my contact form, scannerschool.com/contact, submit your question early, and I will answer it either on the podcast or the Facebook live session. So I want to say thank you again for listening to the Scanner School podcast, where we teach you everything that you need to know about the scanner radio hobby. Thank you, Marshall, for being a guest on today's show, and we will see you all next Tuesday for session 18 of Scanner School. And if you're a Patreon supporter, we'll see you a day or two early. 73.
Thanks for listening to the Scanner School podcast. Be sure to visit www.scannerschool.com to access the show notes and bonus content.